Coming to you from the mean streets of Electro. This is We That Podcast. I'm your co-host, The Boom, and I'm joined by,
I, I'm Wyla.
Wild Walla. uh, Today we have a very special guest. I'm so glad he came on today. Um, you may know him as the Marathon Man, the 24-hour, non-stop. Somebody still owes him $10. We
Oh
got
shit.
This is not my ID here today. How's it going, man?
Hello, man. How you doing?
What's up,
Doing
Henry?
Oh, yes. Someone owes me 10 quid. I won't say. They know who they are. They need to pay Wayne King and get it over with. Yeah.
so hop it.
Yeah.
No, yeah. It's good to have you on. Thank you for doing this.
I've been really looking forward to it. It's been a really cool. That I watched the first one. I saw the second one live. Um,
Nice.
it's been really interesting to hear your opinions and like Coulter's individual uh, like experience with the server and how his character's gone. And I think that's really cool. I've really enjoyed it, so yeah, I'm excited to be here.
Well, no, it's
Aw.
fun to hear about the people that you only meet in games, so you only really know them as their character. So it is really fun to kind of
Mm.
discuss people, what they're doing, kind of what went into that character and everything. But I do want to
Mm.
hop back real quick. You are now a trial moderator, or you were, or now you're an actual moderator?
Much to the dismay of the server management committee, yes, unfortunately, I am a trial moderator. Um,
Mm.
not quite a moderator. I don't know how close that is. I do my best, but yes, I'm a trial moderator.
I'm sure you'll get the official uh, slap on the back, seal of approval. Um, but my question to you is how, because we really wanted to, get a good role player, and it's like you're a package deal. We kind of get a little bit of a mod perspective as
Mm.
well. So just
Mm.
my first question would be, how has it been jumping from role player and We That Remain to now you're handling tickets and stuff, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So
It's
what's that been like?
yeah, it's been cooler to see the behind the scenes on the server, right? The most in depth I got with any sort of it's not even moderation. I was on the staff team as a law team member for I think it's been around a month now. And so I kind of got to have a little bit of the hey, we get to do something that most people in the server don't get to see with writing the new iteration and all that sort of stuff.
Hmm.
But then going to trial moderator, um, doing the whitelists and well, what whitelists I have done and some of the tickets and I don't know. I guess the coolest part has been the little bits of ticket drama that people don't necessarily see. I get to ghost in tickets and watch when somebody does something naughty or when something cool happens or people have opinions and I'm a little bit of a drama queen when it comes to all that sort of stuff. But
You kind
I
of
don't know.
get sucked in a little bit by it.
Yeah, like it
Yeah.
was the same sort of feeling. That I wasn't sure about applying for quite a long time. I thought, oh well, if it comes up again, I'll apply. Um, because I had commitments outside of the server and things like that. But it was almost the same line of thinking as when I started donating because I'd been playing on the server for about a month and a half, and I thought, no, you know what? For something that's free, people might have the disagreements with some of the management, some of the like the ideas discussion, for example, or um, rocky moments in game, and they might get salty about it. But considering that this is free, it's really not that bad. So I thought, well, if I can like help with the lore team or help out even a little bit with tickets and whitelists and general like mod things, then I think I don't know. It was something I kind of thought, maybe I should do it and see what it's like. So yeah, it's been fun.
I'm glad you like it because it's a very hard job. Like,
Mm.
I can imagine. Well, I suppose as a trial mod, you don't get the full force of the hatred or something. I don't know.
You get the I might get in trouble for this.
Oh,
You
don't say
get.
Don't say
anything
that.
that's gonna get you in trouble.
You might be walking around in game, and some people will know your name from the side of the Discord, or they might not fully remember that you're a mod. Like I've had people have rule breaks and OOC moments in front of me, and it's been like, dude, I'm right here. Like, come on, man.
Yeah.
Then there's other moments where people have stopped and they've been like, oh shit. It's like, it's too late. Sorry, I got to do my job. There has been moments as well.
Grinning.
Yeah, that's it.
Grinning.
That's it.
Gotcha.
Yeah, like there was one time, someone was outside of a pub and said something out of character, and I just kind of went, ahem, and they were like, oh shit. Yeah. So let's go over to Berezino or whatever. So I suppose there's an air of people not being as comfortable around you. People do feel like a teacher's watching them or something like that when there's a moderator right next to them. And I don't know. I suppose that probably gets more. You know,
Well,
it's,
I mean,
it's
if
like
they weren't doing anything wrong, then they wouldn't feel uncomfortable, would they?
well,
You know what I
that's
mean?
it, right? You know,
Yeah, that's
don't
true.
do anything wrong, and you won't get shot in the back of the head.
It's not that hard. Not that hard.
You know.
That's what. Yeah, when you
No.
do it in front of a mod, you just skip the ticket and you get the bullet.
Yeah, yeah, and it helps to just be honest as well. Like I've had slip ups. I've had my fair share of being pulled into tickets and having that whole court system and yeah, just if you're in the hole, don't dig it deeper, please. Just make my life easier and make your life easier, and let's get on with fucking playing the game.
So when you're in the lore team, how much input did you have? And first off, did you have any writing or input on this new iteration? And I'm sure you probably had some on the prologue, right?
Well, the prologue didn't come out about. I won't go as much into it as I want to, just because timescales and people have like other commitments and things. We had the lore for the new iteration and the setting and all of that quite a while before the prologue was even an idea. It was Onion Ring of Doom, I think his name is, but he's a fucking sick moderator who he came to I think the mod chat with the idea of just like, hey, what if we do a prologue? Here's a basic set of rules. Here's a proposed area. I think it might have been Novaya was the original like area that we wanted.
Oh.
And it was bounced around for quite a while, but the new iteration setting and things like that, can't quite remember. I think it was somebody came in and was just like, okay, we want to go with a nuclear war theme, and we want to see what you think. And it got bounced around. I think someone thought maybe the 70s or 80s and all that sort of stuff. And then eventually we kind of thought, well, let's make it a bit closer, because having it set in the 90s like Contagion Chernerus was quite disconnecting for people that weren't alive in the 90s and have 2000s culture kind of ingrained in them, like me. And yeah, so we thought, well, most people on the server remember what 2010 was like. And Christ, I wrote maybe 5 or 6 pages. I could probably find the document somewhere, but I wrote a really in-depth lore that tailed onto like a series of revolts that happened in North Africa that ended in Gaddafi getting killed back in the late 2000s.
Kind of going
And
hard. Fucking hell.
that was just like, okay, well, it goes from this, and so once Gaddafi dies, there's instability around here, and then 2014 happens, I think, was my original thing, when the whole thing in Ukraine starts. Now, in lore, even for armor, I think geographically Chernerus is next door to Ukraine. I was like, right, well, that's how we can justify having radiation really nearby, enough that people would go in shelters if there was a detonation in Ukraine, because there was a few reports, I think, of like small arms nukes in Ukraine in 2014. I was like, right, well, if they get detonated there, that can affect journalists enough to where radiation is a thing, but you can go out after a short amount of time. And the it was kind of the first time I had for quite a while, the first time I had the mix of, different opinions and people have different ideas, and you'll put something in and someone will go, well, I want to do this and I want to do that. There was another one about, I think it was Delver wrote it, with nukes in Antarctica, and a whole, like, every country watching the nukes and making sure no one went for them and all that sort of stuff. And eventually we kind of cut out bits and pieces from other people's ideas and just said, hey, look, let's do this. So now I get really nervous if I'm talking about the law to someone. I get worried thinking, what if I say something that's not actually in the law, but I wrote 4 months ago, or however long ago it was? Like, yeah. I get those hiccups sometimes. It's like, oh yeah, that didn't happen. Or, it's 2010, it's not 2013. Or, yeah, all that sort of stuff.
So is there like a bunch of stuff that you wrote that kind of got like cut for?
I would like to say from the original 6 or 7 pages that I had, I think maybe 2 pages were like taken out and been like, hey, here's a base thing to start with. And then we would take it apart and people would make suggestions. And I think we spent more time fixing like grammatical errors and things like that for like 2 weeks, I'm pretty sure. But of course it was weird timing. Like, I had other obligations, and so does everyone else on the law team. They're not like moderators, so it fumbles along. But we had enough time to do it. Even the delay between the seasons, that wasn't a law thing. I think that was just a matter of other logistical issues that came about. But I wasn't a mod then, so I wouldn't know.
Fair enough.
So it's like kind of a big lore team effort, and I guess in that regard, everybody.
Yeah, really good effort as well.
Yeah,
and I think that if I do say so myself, I do think there's a little bit of disappointment when you put it out and just people shit on it, and they're just like, oh no, this wouldn't happen, this wouldn't happen. It's like, well, you're in a game with zombies in it. Like, I don't know how much we're gonna strive for 100% realism here, but there's RP servers in fucking Conan Exiles. I don't know. I don't know how realistic that has to be. So I don't know. Have fun. We gave you a constraint, and play around, see what you can find.
Right.
Yeah, the gas clouds are great the way they fucking work out as like coming in just exactly when we had this thing coming in as well.
Oh,
like,
that was weird.
It is weird.
Yeah,
it is weird.
It was creepy because we were thinking. I'm pretty sure there was a discussion where it was like, wouldn't it be, there was even suggestions where people were like, wouldn't it be cool if we could put in areas where or we could enforce areas of the map that people had to wear gas masks in and all of that. And I'm pretty sure the teaser for the gas zones came out like 2 weeks before we were going to put out the law. And the closer it got, the more information they kept putting out. And when they announced these gas zones, it was like, well, one, obviously, I think you need to wait for it to come out and make sure it doesn't break anything and that it works fine. But then there's also the case of, well, we don't know if we can fit this around law. And I can't say too much about it. We have written stuff for it and got our explanations. But I'm also enjoying hearing what people speculate about in game and make up for themselves and all that sort of stuff. So, yeah,
it was magical how that all came together. Because we talked about it before. That was the lore before anybody knew about the new update with gas. So that was cool how that came together. I do want to ask you back in the prologue. So I think it's safe to talk about now because you played a journalist and then he got on a plane before the bombs dropped, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So how much? Because like I said, if you don't feel comfortable talking about it, I get it. But
Mm.
how much of that was because I know you probably got a lot of footage out of that, and me and Wyler are saying, man, he's probably going to drop this big video because of him and Stephen French. I think you did an
Mm.
interview with Stephen French at one point that
Yep.
was
Yep.
like really professionally kind of set up, like you had a cameraman and shit for your character.
Yes, someone here may or may not have filmed
Someone here may or may not owe you a clip. I am so
it.
sorry. Let
Oh,
me get that
Wyler.
out. Oh shit.
Oh, she was the okay.
Uh,
That explains
yeah.
the lack of. I was just wondering if you
Yeah.
were able to talk
Is it
about it.
delayed because of me?
No,
Is
if it
it
makes you
better
feel
not be?
better, if it
Oh
makes you feel
no,
better.
it is then. Oh, you're trying to make me
No, no,
feel
no, no,
better.
no, no,
Is
no,
there
no.
something to feel better
I've
about? What the fuck?
I've put more time into making GIFs for other ideas. I haven't even opened a project file to make the documentary yet. I've gone through all the
Okay.
footage and
Okay.
cut down what I need, but
Oh, so you're
yeah.
waiting for my clip.
Well, I guess there's other things I need to do. Like, so, the character I played was Cos Remp,
Sorry.
and I was very naughty. We aren't supposed to have characters based on real people, and I
Mhm.
couldn't come up with a name for the journalist, but over here in the UK at least, not Cos Remp, Ross Kemp is quite
Mhm.
a famous TV presenter, and he goes to like war-torn countries, and he goes to see gangs and all that sort of stuff. But he's got a very intense way of presenting that's actually quite funny out of context. And I wanted to try and one of my original ideas to announce the law was to make news broadcasts with like footage from like Ukraine and things like that, and make it look like Chernobyl as if it was actually being reported on. It was only like one message. I was like, hey, what if we put out a series of videos instead of law panels and ramp up to announcing what this iteration is going to be? It didn't go further than that message, but I thought, well, what if I go as this fake Ross Kemp to Chernobyl while all this political divide's going on, and make a documentary about what I see? And I really wanted to disappoint people, and that's a weird statement to make. I want to disappoint people with the documentary because the moment I got into Chernobyl, I got myself a press vest just by asking the police for it. By the way, I didn't kill anyone for it, and the problem is, once everybody knows that you're supposed to be a journalist, a reporter, or a cameraman, everybody wants to be in your documentary.
Oh
Everybody is the
wow.
most interesting person in Chernobyl, and oh, can you interview me? Or I want to talk to you.
Right.
Or hey, what about all the first thing that happened to me? Someone ran up to me while I was outside of the PD and went, "Hey, you want to join the resistance?" I was like, no thanks. I have a job, thank you. And I got approached by loads of those resistance guys all the way through the prologue, and I was like, yeah, I'm not gonna talk to you guys. You're a mess. What the plan is, um, basically, I have three self-contained stories. One was Stephen French. It was the big joke of what is this gangster from the UK doing in Chernobyl of all
Yeah.
places, and can I recreate one segment of how Ross Kemp would do his interviews? The next would be interviews with stuff like the police chief and a ride along with the police, and I can't remember the show, but you know, like any cop show where it's just
Yeah.
funny to watch. And then one that I didn't actually account for. I think Orvalets was the furthest village that it wasn't really governed by the police. It was on the edge. It was hard to get in contact with police and hard to avoid banditry and things like that. And I met Relas, the guy that plays Tom Hall last season, and we had a really cool segment about how is this one guy that's stuck here and can't get back home? How is he making his way in a dangerously and politically divided land and shoring up his home and trying to stay safe and all that sort of stuff? It turned into a really cool little interview of self-sufficiency. So those were the three segments I want, at least. And I don't include the resistance stuff. I don't include resistance gunfights and things like that. It's literally one question with one policeman where I'm like, hey, so I heard you guys were doing bad stuff. And they go, we're not doing bad stuff. We're the good guys. And then I just ignore it for the whole thing. Because you're a reporter in a foreign country. You're not going to write a bad report while you're there and make it known you're doing it. That was the idea there. Is like, if I'm going to do a journalist in a country in the state that journalist is in, I'm not going to be the good-hearted reporter that wants to show the real side. And to be honest, it was hard to pin down anybody to actually speak to from the resistance, because I'd get a name, I'd go out maybe an hour later or the next day, and I go, hey, I'm looking for, I don't know, David. David died yesterday, got executed by the police. Cool. Who do I speak to now? Oh, you speak to James. All right, cool. I'll go in a police raid. Like, everyone I kept getting referred to kept dying.
Wow.
Yeah, and
The police were doing their jobs, obviously.
they were really doing their jobs, man. Like, I played Henry in the last iteration, and that was a little subversive group of really not good people, and to organize that for just about 3 months, I think, and then to come to this thing where that group doesn't exist anymore, and see these other groups that try and form and then immediately collapse.
Yeah.
I always giggle. I have to turn my microphone off and laugh sometimes, because it's quite funny to watch. But yeah, I don't know. It was fun to do. I'm glad I did Cosrem. I wish I could have kept him on, but I thought that the end event was going to have a lot less people surviving. So Cosrem died on the plane back home when the bombs dropped. Officially speaking. So yeah.
Hopefully the tapes arrived. That's
Well,
what it's like.
that's what email's for, isn't it? In this new internet age. Wonderful.
Yeah.
Made it to his bunker somewhere. Fucking hell.
Just
Yeah,
I'd
I
love
think
to
somewhere at the bottom of
actually-
the ocean.
I would love actually if you could say some stuff on your like quote unquote subversive actions as Henry.
Oh God. Yeah.
I
Because
was gonna say,
Yeah.
was that the
for
majority?
anybody
That was.
who
Did you play?
knew him.
That was the majority of your character, right? The Henry. Did you play a character before
Yeah.
Henry?
No, I'd
Okay,
never
so that was your
RP'd
first.
before.
Oh, wow. Okay.
My last time before We That Remain was way back in like 2013, when the mod was like height of popularity, or at the start of its popularity. There was RP that was really big back then, but I was a 13-year-old kid and sounded like a church mouse, and it wasn't really going to work out well. So
What made
I
you?
did other things.
What made you get to We That Remain though? Like, how did you?
People won't like it, and there's a stigma about it, but I came from Conquest. I had a group of guys, some that play on the server, people like Wylas and Mike Oxlong or Stephen French and John Grammaticus, all these people that I'd known for about a year. Some I'd known for 4 or 5 years. And we were playing on official for quite a while. We held the apartment in Severograd for, I think it was like 3 weeks, every night getting raided, getting called at like 3 in the morning, help, we're getting raided and all that sort of stuff. Eventually, someone glitched in the base, and you could get through walls and duplicate. It was a really big issue. And someone put hundreds of landmines in one of the buildings, and we were like, right, we didn't get beaten in the legitimate playing sense. We got beaten by people that got frustrated that they couldn't get in. And so we were really downtrodden. We were like, look, I don't know if I want to put the effort in to maintain that for that long. It was really stressful. And
Sure.
we found Conquest because we talked about it every now and then, and someone had mentioned it. So we started playing for about a week. That's when the promotion for Contagion comes in. I was like, oh, RP. I didn't suggest it to anybody. I was like, okay, I'll quietly try this for a few days and see what it's like. And there's some people that If you told me they'd be playing an RP server a year ago, I would have told you to fuck off. Like, no, I would have never suggested it until slowly this group of people starts joining, and that's kind of how I got into it. So yeah, I came through Conquest, and there's a whole meme about Conquest players and all that sort of stuff, but I wasn't as deep into Conquest as some people tend to be, at the very least.
You even suffered the stigma.
Oh.
You're like, oh no, I'm from Conquest, but it's fine.
Yeah, I'm defensive about it. Don't hurt my feelings,
that's fair
please.
enough. No, that's cool. No, that's cool. Like, it's good to see like people who, as you say, you never would have thought would do it, doing it and enjoying it and getting on well as well.
Well, that was it, right? Because so we had this group in Contagion Churnerus, which was me, John Grammaticus, and originally Wayne King. And the way that we started off was, let's not turn into a big group. Let's not recruit many people. Let's see what is the most PSYOP, CIA type shit that we can get away with, and how much can we fuck with people. Like, it turned into an experiment of, okay, there's a postage channel, what can we do with that? What can we do with word of mouth? If we show up and do a job for someone, how can we get into trust of big groups and things like that? And that's what we set out to do. And so it wasn't so much of the, I want a really good storyline. It was, these are people pretending to be people. Obviously it's hard to separate yourself from you and an RP character. And we knew that, and we kind of thought, well, we could see if we can steer people, we can see if we can influence things as much as we'd like to. And I'm happy to say, and I feel confident enough to say, that it was successful. We got some really interesting shit out of that.
And,
Go on.
Yeah,
Well,
I was gonna say, let me just cut in real quick. I know there's a lot of gray area to good guys, bad guys, whatever. But when you first jumped into role playing and We That Remain, did you have like a mindset of like, okay, I'm gonna be the good guy, or I'm gonna be the bad guy, or I'm just gonna let the server shape this Henry into whatever he ends up being?
Yeah, it was kind of like, I wanna see where it takes me. See, I like I mentioned before, I absolutely love DayZ. Played DayZ now for 8 years, and I think most people, even it was mentioned last episode, most people are fans of Frankie on PC.
Yeah.
I was 13-year-old me on the internet, man. I loved Frankie on PC. I still do. And the way that I'd play on official was more or less emulating that. The way I met the guy that plays Stephen French was, I saw him in a barn, thought he was getting shooting, and I was like, hey buddy, how you doing in there? I'm gonna open the door, don't have your gun, and whatever. I had a gas mask on, so the first words to me were, your gas mask's on, you twat, take it off. And that was it. But that sort of way of playing was how I went into We That Remain. I was like, right, I'm going to have a base character that for now is me. I'll see how it works and how I want to be with people. And then we had that idea of, can we fuck with people? And yeah, that it wasn't ever a conversation of let's be good guys or let's be bad guys. Like, our first major issue with somebody only came by because they were rude to me. And then it was like, okay, their group's going. It's gone. Let's just put time into this.
Things are about to heat up in Vibor.
Yep, that's it. And they truly did. It didn't exactly turn out the way that we were planning it to, but there was a lot of time put in to get the sentiment against the Vanguard, the guys that were in Vibor. There was a lot of time put in to get that sentiment against Vanguard, and I'm I'm more glad than some others that it turned out the way it did. And yeah, it was like that a couple of times. We
shaking my fist.
we had a moment at the end of the iteration, or I think this is during the 24-hour live stream, where me and Stephen French, we sit down in the party, and we were like, right, let's see if we can genuinely break down what we're responsible for, And so we came to like a ballpark figure. I killed 3 people personally in that whole iteration. First hand, the 4 of us, or 5 of us technically, overall was the most amount of members we've ever had. Directly, we killed something like 18 or 20 people. Indirectly, we guessed we could attribute around 40 to 50 deaths to shit that we'd done and said and posters we'd made and all that sort of shit. Just fucking around, basically. But yeah, I don't know, and none of it was. I'd say, yeah, pretty much none of it was justified. It was purely just, all right, someone was mean once or rude or, yeah, I don't know.
You just
Like,
don't like him.
Watch your
yeah,
manners around, Henry.
well,
Yeah.
okay, so, oh god, so I spent 119 days in the server as Henry. I kept a tally for quite a while, and that translated to the character. The character of Henry, the backstory I had was that it had been a few years since the outbreak. He'd spent longer amounts of time in other countries, so I wanted that to feel like, okay, he's not just woken up in Journalist, he's been other places. And yeah, I wanted to write down as much as I could remember, and I was like, right, okay, instead of that, I'm going to record it. I'll set something on record and just run through everything I can possibly remember. By the time I got to about the 5th day in the server, I'd been talking for 45 minutes. Yeah, and it was like, oh god, like, to try and condense everything is painful. Because yeah, 119 days, yeah, I wouldn't have thought I'd spend that much time. And I never died. It was my character from day 1 of the iteration to the day before the last day of the iteration, all the way through. And there's really, I don't think there's, I could maybe say there's 3 or 4 people that survived all of that with Henry. And that's it. Like, loads of people were dying, man. Loads of people. But yeah, our first thing as a group, while we were flying under the radar, we wanted to get acquainted with a big group and start to stabilize the northern region. Our whole idea was, let's get rid of banditry from the north. Not because it's altruistic, just because we can't be bothered fighting bandits all the time. How do we do that? Okay, let's be friendly with a big group, and let's try and weave them into fighting bandit groups. We'd heard about something called the cartel near Novaya. We were like, right, let's see what we can help with here. We heard about Epsilon and a couple other groups, and we knew a guy who knew a guy that knew Dante from Epsilon, the head, what we perceived to be the head of Epsilon. And one day he's just like, hey, cartel's getting taken out. You guys, you want to come with? And we're like, right, well, we don't know anyone. Let's just show up, see what we can do, and maybe talk to people at the end and see who we can find. I got put in a diplomatic communications radio channel, so I wasn't even in like the big main assault radio channel. And I met up with this recon team. We watched this barn for like an hour and a half. My first little claim to fame was being the guy that initiated that. Not very well, I do admit. But yeah, I ran across an open field, initiated, ran back across and told everyone to shoot. And it was like 20, 30 people showed up to fight the cartel.
Oh, God.
Yeah,
Wow.
it was a mess. And I had... Oh, man, I wish I could remember his name. Much later on, I got asked to tell the story of the Battle of Long Barn, which what we started to call it, where this guy was going around collecting stories, and so I told the story from my perspective, and I was sat in this broken house, basically over the whole battlefield, watching loads of people running in and getting shot, and seeing the snipers that were next to me from these other groups shooting friendlies in the back and just being like, what the fuck are you doing? And all this sort of stuff, just panicking, just being like, oh my god, everyone's gonna die here. Fridge, a guy that I'd met on the first day, who walked around with a big fridge, he died not too far from me. He was in that radio channel I was in. Basically everybody but me and Dante were left alive in that radio channel. I was like, look man, you don't know me. I just gotta fucking go do something. I don't know. I had a couple guys on the other side. I was on my own, more or less. And we thought, right, let's run around the outside. Let's grab everyone that's separated and fucking throw them at the wall, because everyone's a headless chicken right now. And it went successful and all that sort of stuff. After the battle, that gave us enough leverage when somebody was like, who the fuck are these guys? Because they weren't this group or this group. I was like, well, I'm so-and-so. But like the moment the battle ended, we just left. And then we got radio messages, and I started talking to Dante on the radio, and it's like, right, well, come by, let's have a meeting and chat. Because that was, if you're going to have an opening way to meet somebody, actually working with them under stress is a really good idea. That was the pivotal moment for our group. And so from there, we started working with Epsilon. We had plans to raid the CDC as well. We started trying to turn people's opinion away from the CDC being a good thing, and we just wanted to watch the world burn at that point. Because they were giving people guns and bullets and grenades and things for books. And the reasoning we were going around with was, if you wanted to help people, you wouldn't give them shit to kill each other with. And we were trying to reason to say, oh yeah, they just want everyone to kill each other off so that they can have control over the region. We're like, well, it's going to be a big strategic point that if we have control over it, well, not us. If we put a group in there that is friendly with us, then that's a key stronghold to then have a barrier around the north. We really looked at it like, I've got a map somewhere that I lined off region and was like, this is the region we want. It extends from the east of Severograd to the west of Topolniki, I think, and that was it. It went as far south as Devil's Castle, and that whole region, we wanted to make sure that was it. Now, that's where the idea came from of, okay, well, let's actually try and form a group here. Let's not make it that big of a thing, because we were just fucking around to that point. So the plan then became stabilize the north, because now the quote-unquote big bad group is gone. Let's make friends. Let's try and set up an alliance in these certain regions where people can look after these certain areas. And eventually we wanted to set up trades and like a trade hub and try and make it safe. Try and make a community that we weren't always there for, but we kind of were dancing around and doing things for.
So did you guys have like an official base set up at that point, or was it just kind of...
We were always at Novi Lug. It's a field just south of Severograd, and there's one house on the top of a hill. Like 2/3 of it is open. Everything behind it is a thin row of trees, and we stayed in this one tiny house, and it worked to our favor. We had people that were hunting us for not too long, that couldn't find us because people would go past this house and go, yeah, that's... We were called Moravians. They were like, yeah, that's... It's just, it looks like two people live there. It doesn't look like a big base, right? So, yeah, we...
I remember hearing that name in game,
yeah.
The Moravians. Did Henry ever meet the CDC? Did he actually go there?
Yeah.
And he did, yeah.
Well,
how was that? Because I heard, I never did in game, but I heard so many horror stories in game about the CDC. Like if you went there, you wouldn't come out. They experimented on you.
And that they shot some dude, and that they were giving people things against their will and testing on people. Most of that was shit that we were just saying to get people to not want to help them.
This was straight Henry propaganda. They made it all the way over to Vybor, where everybody.
So
wow.
Yeah, we after that battle, when we were talking to Epsilon and trying to figure out a way to get rid of the CDC, we started making up those stories and getting half bullshit stories from people and all of that sort of stuff and spreading it around. And I'm sure there was posters. I put a radio message in once saying to not trust them and all that shit. And we went to work then, just being like, right, how do we get in and how do we destabilize it and all that sort of shit. There was a guy in Epsilon, bit of a whack job, and circumstances eventually happened where certain villages started getting cleared. I can't remember the one. It was, I believe, the second town that they'd cleared. The first one was
it Krishna? Was it
Dari, I think.
Yeah.
Might have been Grishino you're thinking of.
Grishino was the second. Novi Sabor was the first one. We went there, helped that clear out just to get our names down, and then we went to Grishino to try and keep gaining favor with CDC members. Eventually they go, well, hey, we're all going to go back. You can all have checkups and things. We're like, right, we actually get to go in. Because up to that point, it was only going up to one of the front gates. Maybe someone was awake. And then if you didn't have a book for them, it was like, fuck off. We don't want to speak to you. And they were really tight with information. So we were like, shit, me and Mike Oxlong, who is Stephen French, who was playing Mike Oxlong at the time. Me and Mike go over to Devil's Castle with this group, and one guy turns to me and goes, from the CDC, he goes, so this Rex guy, the crazy dude, he goes, what do you think of him? Now, Rex was a pain in the ass, and we'd been thinking of ways to get rid of him for ages. So I just went, oh yeah, fucking psychopath. You want to get rid of him. Don't trust him. Don't trust anything he said. He's fucking mental. Which he was. We started, we heard a thing about some woman called Angie, and we were all convinced she wasn't real. She was real, but she just hadn't been on for ages. And we were like, yeah, this dude's like fucking schizophrenic and controlling, and he's just weird. Let's get rid of him. I tell all of this to the CDC guy outside of the castle. We go in, he has this whole thing, and me and Mike are sat in this shed for like an hour and a half waiting, and the guy keeps coming, I think it was Grimmy, keeps coming in and going, well, here's an update for you, and here's what we think, and all that. And he comes in eventually, he goes, this guy, he's tried to attack somebody, and we need to get rid of him, but what do you think? And me and Mike in the shed were just like, oh, well, I don't know. I mean, you could let him go, but you never know. He could be quite dangerous. Perhaps you should, take him out. And we really tried to push it. Eventually, we played into it. We were like, hey, just so it's easier to deal with, make it look like we're getting executed as well. We got tied up, put up against the wall, started chatting shit and getting hit and all that sort of stuff. And, then he dies, and the moment that this dude gets shot in the back of the head, everyone's like, well, good job, get the handcuffs off. Nice one, job done. And I think Grimmy had asked us, like, have you got any previous military experience, all this sort of shit. And they more or less offered us a job on the security team. And we were just like, holy shit. We weren't thinking it would happen that soon, but we'd found a foot in the door to try and get inside and do our dumb shit to try and break it apart. We had a way in so we could see things right. And unfortunately, after that, people just weren't awake. We went by like every day for 2 weeks to the front door, and I radioed people, and I radioed Grimmy and all that sort of stuff, and it never worked out. We got waylaid with another group that I'm sure you're familiar with. The Vanguard. Rest in piss. And,
You are brutal. Oh my god.
You were the potato guy?
Oh yeah. We did the potatoes. Well, you see, the start of the whole Vanguard thing was the same day I met Tom Hall. We were outside of the Devil's Castle, and Tom comes up with his group, and the day before we were running through fucking Zaprudnol, and a truck comes up the road, and Mike turns to me and goes, hold on, what are we doing here? Do we, rob it, or do we just talk to them? And we're just like, okay, let's just see how it goes. He even positioned himself by the door to get the guy to put his hands up. The guy that gets out has a green armband on. We're like, what are you doing? Who are you? I can't remember. It's some sergeant or whatever. And he was doing a loot run for a group called the Vanguard. No, okay, well, where are you guys based? We'd like to come by and say hello and see what we can do. And he was like, oh, well, I'm just trying to get through here. I got shot at here a few days ago. And I hadn't done anything. They just shot at my truck. We're like, right, okay, well, we know a few people in the area. Let's go away for a few days. We'll see what we can find for you, and then we'll come to you guys and see if we can straighten this out. Like, we thought, okay, it's better to not rob the guy. Let's see if we can build something here and get the relationship that we had that was similar to Epsilon. We're by Devil's Castle the next day, I think, with meeting Tom Hall and all that sort of stuff. And we see a guy by the front gate of the castle with a green armband on. We're like, hey, you Vanguard? He goes, yeah. Cool, we need to speak to you about a truck. And he comes down and he's like, well, my name's Jack and all that sort of stuff. Leader of the Vanguard. It's like, fucking great. We don't have to go all the way to Vibel. We can just talk to you here. We'd done some investigating. We knew a trader that said he saw a truck and wanted to get its attention to trade with it, so he shot in the air. And he was like, oh, you're the fuckers that keep trying to kill my guys and rob our trucks. And we're just like, he goes off on this explosive tirade about how we were like bandits and all that sort of shit. And he's like, you guys in your fucking compound by that gas station. And we're like, hold the fuck up. We never said anything about being in a compound by a gas station. We knew what he was on about. We didn't know anyone was in there, so it wasn't us. We're just like, hold the fuck up, bud. We went out of our way to find this shit and give you a clear story so that your guys don't have a concern about going through there. We're trying to make this shit stable. He's like, I don't give a fuck what you have going on. Blah, 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 blah. You're fucking bandits. It's like, no. And eventually we got him to calm down. And we're like, right, well, okay, let's just put a pin in that, and we'll speak to you in a few days, maybe. He's like, yeah, sure, whatever. Fucking goes off. And I remember turning around to Mike and just being like, yeah, that guy's dying, right? And he goes, yeah.
Oh dear.
Yeah. It was purely, it wasn't really even what he said, it was just the tone and the explosiveness. It was like, yeah, that can be a problem. We had conversations with Epsilon about groups that we weren't necessarily friendly with that could flip to the CDC if a war was to happen. And Vanguard was on the list of people that we weren't quite sure about. And so we were still in the mindset of, do we try and make friends with them, or do we get rid of them? Sure, we had personal things there with that little argument, but it wasn't like, hey, let's burn the group down. And a couple days later, we had a few books. And we thought, well, okay, the guy was there dropping off, Jack was there dropping off a few books for some stuff with the CDC. Let's go by, because we don't trade with the CDC on principle, and let's give them a few books and just say, hey, look, sorry about the misunderstanding, whatever. We go over and give the books to them outside their back gate, and they're like, yeah, right, sure. Well, okay, look, we knew this was going to be awkward anyway, but can you do us a favor? We heard that someone from that battle in the cartel had escaped, and we were hunting them. So we asked, have you seen Hefe, I think his name was? And they all went, who? And started laughing. Like, in our face, just really disrespectfully. And we were just like, I don't know, man. We thought, okay, we could be friendly and try and, get something going. But no, we were shouted at and accused and laughed at every turn. And more it was like, right, look, they're going to flip if they know we're trying to get rid of the CDC. It was how we felt. And that's when we started fucking with them. And that's when people started making posters. Mike had... I woke up one day and saw a picture that said... Vanguard are a cult or something like that, with this weird graphic. All Mike had done was like Google searched an image and then wrote over it, but it kind of looked good. And I remember really laughing at a party because he made quite a few of them and just kept posting anti-Vanguard propaganda and all that sort of stuff. And ages after that, like other stuff had happened. We were dealing with other groups, and I was going around meeting people. There was a group in Novod that I was giving supplies to so they could help build their walls and stuff. They were having a hard time with nails and all that. Jimmy was the guy at the head of that. It was called Haven Point. Um, we'd been doing the posters for a while, and we wanted to make sure that we could get the Northern Alliance being strong enough. And Jimmy was a key point to where we thought that he doesn't have the direction of where he's going. We always wanted to make sure the groups knew what their plan was. We had our plan. We wanted to stabilize the North, set up a trading route. That was our main thing. Jimmy was one of the guys that went a long way in starting the rumor that we had more than just the three of us. We thought, right, it's going to be a lot easier if people think we have more influence than we really do. And we can probably do that if we start chatting shit, or if I keep appearing loads of different places. I start going to these groups. I meet Jimmy. I meet the Vanguard. I meet